Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. It's about 10:30 at night, just about to go to bed, but I wanted to make a video real quickly. It's kind of a postmortem to the postmortem. As many of you guys know, Cardano's had a hard week. We've recovered, and now we're in the cleanup mode. And one of the things that I didn't think was going to be controversial at all, but has become almost a mocking point right now is this whole conception of the involvement of law enforcement when bad things happen. Um, so, first and foremost, code is not law in Cardano. The Constitution is law. The Cardano community came together, they wrote a Constitution, and the Constitution is on chain. It's been ratified and approved. And the Constitution of Cardano outlines the intended use of the network. Okay, so there's always going to be a difference between code and intention. And that's what it is. And the reason why there's a difference between the two is code is imperfect. It has bugs in it, it has problems in it, whereas an intention is aspirational. So you say things like freedom of speech and life, liberty, and property, and these types of things. So what we tried to do in Cardano was evolve beyond the whole, well, if there's a bug, there's a bug. You deal with it. It is what it is. We just move on and accept the consequences, to let's write a constitution so that that will endow and empower an on-chain government. And an on-chain government will then have the ability to do things that impact every single person in the Cardano ecosystem. For example, one very specific example, they can hard fork the network. They can withdraw money from the treasury. They can raise and lower the rewards stake pool operators get, and modify the fundamental properties of the ledger in ways far beyond other blockchains. That's why we have a constitution. Now, is this lawful? Yes, because it's consent of the governed. Every user of Cardano is agreeing to the terms of the constitution. So that means there is an intended fair use of the system. So if something happens that violates the intended fair use of the system, you could call it a violation of everybody in the system. So despite the fact that we have this constitution, people are saying, well, no, the code will supersede it. So if there's a bug or a design flaw, we're just going to throw away the entire constitution, every single thing it says, all the tenets within it, and we'll just go with the buggy code inside the system. So then I have to ask, what's the point of having an on-chain constitution then? What's the point of the whole exercise to build a government? And where does the legitimacy of that government come from, especially if there are things in the Constitution not yet reflected in the code? We call this constitutional debt. So if we say certain things like X, Y, and Z in the voting system must be apparent, but the code doesn't reflect that yet, well, then those things don't exist and they never will exist. And there you go. The other thing that's extraordinary to me is that there's a world of difference between saying the government should operate Cardano and saying the users of Cardano who live in certain countries have rights from those countries. There's not a single person in leadership, there's not a single person who's serious building Cardano who asserts or says that the government should have control over the ledger, should run the ledger, should be involved in the operations of the ledger, the maintenance of it, or the code. Not a single person, and no one has ever said that in any way, shape, or form. No one calls any government to say, come save us. You pay taxes. Maybe you don't, but most of you listening do. Most of you listening live in a society. You have renter contracts, you have cars, you have homes, you have jobs. And let me get this straight. Do you live in a lawless society? So if somebody steals your car, will you just say, well, that is what it is. It's okay. If somebody breaks into your home, you'll say, that is what it is. It's okay. If somebody does physical harm to you, they show up at your home and beat you up, they murder your dog, they drowned your child, you would say, no, it is what it is. No, I hate the government. Everything about the government's wrong. Most rational people with a brain 99.9999999% of people listening to this thing would pick up the phone and ask for help because you live in a society with laws, a rule of law. You have life, liberty, and property. This is the basic foundational conception of all constitutional republics. You have rights. So you have property that the Cardano network manages for you. And if that property is stolen, it's adulterated, and damaged, if someone attempts to steal that property, that's more likely than not a crime. So you have the right as a user of that network, just like you have the right as a renter of an apartment, an owner of a car, of your own body, to gain a protection of life, liberty, and property. And what we're basically saying is, despite the fact that we have a constitution, despite the fact that there's an intended use of the system, despite the fact that we're not talking about the government intervening, running, or saving the system in any way, if something occurs that deprives you of your life, liberty, or property, you do not have the right for your jurisdiction to file a complaint about it. I don't know how to build a society on a blockchain where that's the standard. I just don't. I have a healthcare clinic. I want to put the medical records of my healthcare clinic somehow, some way into or adjacent to the blockchain industry. How exactly do I do that in this world? I would like to see national infrastructure run in the blockchain industry. How exactly do we run public infrastructure if there's no understanding that the users of this infrastructure, the consumers of this infrastructure, have protections of their life, liberty, and property? Furthermore, it's a double standard that I can't understand. So I have to accept the Genius Act and the Clarity Act. I have to accept when the SEC sends subpoenas to people. I have to accept the laws of the land and be regulated by them as a company in this ecosystem and just comply, or else I go out of business. I get sued out of oblivion. I get put in handcuffs like Roger Ver did and CZ did and so many other people who got arrested. But then when the time comes to have the shoe on the other foot and something bad happens, I'm not allowed to report a crime. If we were talking about a world where I could sign a waiver, a magical waiver saying you forfeit all your constitutional protections to life, liberty, and property if you use this system. It's like Mad Max. It's Escape from New York. It's the land of the exiles. And when you go there, it's a demilitarized zone. It's international waters. No one is going to save you. No one's going to protect you. There's no nothing. But on the other hand, you don't pay taxes. On the other hand, you have no regulation. That would be one thing. Then we could say, okay, there's a carrot and a stick. No one can tell you what to do, but no one can help you when bad things happen. But what I'm basically told by all these people commenting who I just don't understand the thinking is that when bad things happen, we can't have any protections of life, liberty, and property in our jurisdictions, but yet we still have to comply with the government's mandates. So we get all the downside, but we get none of the upside. It's an extraordinary thing. People have to acknowledge there is a constitution on Cardano which clearly articulates and defines the intended use of the system. That supersedes the code. That's the whole point of an on-chain constitution. It's the highest law in the system. The code should reflect the intent of the Constitution, and the deliberations of the governance of Cardano and the treasury of Cardano is to remove the constitutional debt and get the code closer to the intent of the Constitution. That's why we spent 2 years with SIP 1694. That's why we all worked together to do this. And when somebody takes an exploit and uses that exploit to deprive the users of the system of their life, liberty, and property, to deny them their access to their ADA, to damage the reputation and brand of the system, to stop the commercial activity on the system, to damage the DeFi ecosystem, the bridge ecosystem, and create an opportunity for funds to be stolen or lost, that person is equivalent to somebody who has damaged public infrastructure. There is no real difference, philosophically speaking, between that person and a hacker who exploits some broken code to shut off the power grid or shut off the water grid or disrupt traffic and resulting in a huge traffic jam or cars crashing into each other or hacking the air traffic controllers and disrupting air traffic, in some cases having planes crash into each other. There is no difference. This is public infrastructure in the commons. It has an intended purpose. That purpose is explicit. It's written down. The code tries to live up to it. No code can. There's no conception of perfect code. It's not possible. I've spent 10 years of my life with Agda and Haskell and formal methods and peer review. And you know what? One catastrophic bug every 10 years is pretty fucking good. No one else in this industry has a record that good, but it's still one. And I'm told that, well, it is what it is. Somebody screwed up. We all just have to accept it. You forfeited by using Cardano your life, liberty, and property. Someone does harm maliciously to you. You do not have the right of recourse. You can't sue anybody. You can't use law enforcement. We're just completely divorced of it. But pay your taxes. But be subject to the Clarity Act. But comply with the law. So they can tell us what to do, but they deny us any due process or representation. We have taxation without representation. And exactly where is the FBI saving me? You Twitter fucking trolls. They're not saving anybody. They're not running the Cardano network. They're not rescuing the network. We did this ourselves as an ecosystem. It's just we have the right, when property is damaged, to ask for recourse. And it is not the job of the Cardano ecosystem to do that. How exactly would it? The Cardano ecosystem has no access to your personal information and your personal records and can conduct an investigation to determine your intent. The Cardano network doesn't have any access to your money sitting in your bank account. It doesn't have any access to it. Can't detain you in a jail cell. We have no tools in this system, just like the electric grid doesn't have any tools inside its function to punish a person that's hacked into it and caused grievous harm to it. That's the entire purpose of law enforcement. That's the entire purpose of the courts. So how exactly do we drag that into the cypherpunk world? You tell me. Am I just supposed to program humanoid robots and have the on-chain government deploy them to go kill someone? I mean, what fantasy world do you fucking live in? It's the least adult thing. And what was so asinine when I was in a debate with Anatoly is I asked a very direct question that he could not answer because he knew the answer. And he can't say the answer because he's pandering to the cypherpunk crowd for a few cheap wins that's absolutely morally and philosophically bankrupt. They celebrate when all these regulated financial institutions come onto their infrastructure. But then they say if somebody exploits their network and causes grievous harm to those regulated financial institutions, those institutions do not have the right to report a crime. Everybody in Solana land, you're so excited about all these payment providers and real world asset providers and exchanges and other people joining your network and trading on your network. But if your network goes down and somebody's responsible for it using an exploit against the intention of the system, what you're telling all those regulated actors is they have no economic rights. Buyer beware. If you lose any money at all, you're not allowed to go to the FBI and report it. It's extraordinary to me. It's absolutely extraordinary. We all know that they will, and we all know that the requisite jurisdictions will investigate, and we all know it's an actual crime. And we all know the people who did it, if they get caught, will go to prison. So why are we having this debate? Why are we babbling like incoherent children about this? This is so asinine. It's one conflation, one straw man, one low effort, pathetic attempt at arguing over another. There's no philosophical core to this. It's bankrupt at its core. Are you advocating for a world of no laws? Are you advocating for society that once we step into the crypto world, we cede all of our rights? What exactly are we advocating for here? And then why do you consent to surrender your crypto rights? You take your cryptocurrencies and you send them over to the exchanges. Now they have custody of your assets. You tell me, are those exchanges cypherpunks? Do they comply with this bizarro ethos? If they get hacked, will they just not cooperate with law enforcement? Say, like the mafia, we just got to take care of it in the family? Really? Really? It's an extraordinary thing. I, I'm not advocating for government control of cryptocurrencies. And you people, you just refuse to understand the core of the argument I'm saying here. These systems are independent of governments. They really are. They're global in nature. They don't care what the United States has to say, what Europe has to say, what China has to say. They just run as they run. You users are not independent of the government. You live somewhere. You have a home somewhere. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to drink water. Wherever you do that at, you are under the jurisdiction of that place, whether you like it or not. You're born into it. And you cannot walk up and say, I'm not subject to the laws of the land that I'm under. You can try. Sovereign citizens do it. All these different groups do it. And every single time they try to do it, they end up in handcuffs or worse. That's the reality of the world. So somehow you think that when you use the cryptocurrency, you can magically escape 100% of the fact that you're a human being in the physical world in a society of laws. And somehow you're just not subject to anything. You can try, and for a while, you'll probably get away with it. And eventually, you'll end up in handcuffs because that's just the way humanity works. You can't escape. You can't be an island. The whole point of blockchain technology is not to get rid of the government. It's to augment and replace the corrupt and broken parts of it. It adds integrity and transparency and auditability and immutability to every transaction. It gives you the ability to know that the votes are the way they say they are, that people spent the money on the things they said they spent the money on, that the government can't come in and edit the records. It can't come in and censor the records. This whole Epstein thing about Trump trying to prevent the release of the Epstein files, if they existed in the commons of the blockchain space, there would be no possibility to obfuscate or hide them. Not to mention the thousands of other whistleblowing concerns that exist. And that is crypto, and no one can change that. And when it happens, and that's the intent. And when you have constitutions, you now know the intent of the system. In the absence of it, the best you can hope for is the code of the system. But it's primitive because what if the code has an obvious bug? What do? But the real world is different. You live in the real world. You eat, sleep, and breathe in the real world. There's other people there. There's consequences to your behaviors. If you go around just setting fires to people's homes, if you go around just stealing everything that's not bolted down, if you go around causing harm to human beings, if you're just a generally toxic piece of shit human being, there will be consequences to all of that. And crypto can't protect you. It really can't. Yeah, all these people are dogpiling on. We have to grow up. I'm sorry, crypto's not going to get to $10 trillion if we just keep living in this childish fantasy. There's all these childish fantasies. The meme coin space. If I buy it, it'll go up 100x. The whole degenning of everything is guaranteed to get a 10x, and if it's not a 10x, it's a scam immediately. Of fantasy metrics of false trading and false heroes. It's not real. The whole point of the technology we build is to transform and innovate society so that we can live in a more free, more transparent, more honest society. Not so that we can live in a society without any rules whatsoever, where it's survival of the fittest, the smartest, the most crafty. You don't judge the justness of a society based upon what it does for the greatest, strongest, smartest, and most capable. You judge the justness of a society by how it treats the weakest and least capable, the most vulnerable people. And if you're proposing this survival of the fittest mentality, what you're basically saying is the strong will prey upon the weak. How is this any different than barbarians sprawling the countryside, raiding and raping as they go through? This is the digital equivalent of barbarism at the highest pursuit. Honestly speaking, it is. I'd like to live in a world where we care for each other, in a world where we have rules and constraints, and each and every person is equal under the law. And I'd like it to live in a world where we use tools for collaboration instead of destruction. And if all the cryptocurrency space is a sandbox for scoundrels to do scoundrel things, we already have that. It's called EVE Online. And it's a fun game, but it doesn't have human stakes. Here's the reality. The Cardano network has stake pool operators. The Cardano network has DeFi. The Cardano network has people in it who derive their entire livelihood from the operation of the system. You cannot tell me it is the intent of the system to allow people to come in and arbitrarily and capriciously disrupt the entire system, depriving all those people of their life, liberty, and property. And because of a code bug, they should just get away with it. It's an extraordinary thing. There's always going to be a code bug. There's always going to be a zero-day exploit. This is software. It will always happen at some arbitrary point, maybe once every 5 years, once every 10 years, like Cardano, if we're super fucking good at what we do. And the next time it happens, it could be so catastrophic people could die. And your standard is, well, that's what the code says. It violated the Constitution, which is the highest law of the system. But you know what? Everybody just gets away with it. Fuck all those people. And all those other people, they're narcs if they go to the FBI or other authorities and complain about their rights being violated. Let's make Charles the big Karen. Honestly, man, grow the fuck up. Just grow up. Crypto's got to grow up. We got to get real about this. Do you want a $10 trillion industry or not? Do you want an industry being adopted by governments, banks, Fortune 500? Do you want us to have a seat at the big table? Or do you want us to be this weirdo cult that is philosophically and logically inconsistent and utterly incompatible with anything but roving sociopaths and barbarians? I didn't sign up to enable and empower endless theft. I didn't sign up to enable and empower a joke. And that's what this industry is becoming if you embrace this mindset. A fucking joke. Where the leadership are a bunch of carnival barkers filled with inconsistencies. They wear the hat of cypherpunkdom while they suck the cocks of BlackRock and all these other large institutions and hand away their networks to them to be run by them. You think code is law when all your validators are under OFAC compliance and can censor transactions? That's what these large networks will do with their Faustian bargains as they collect their silver. But then they lecture us about the goddamn code is law and cypherpunk ethos. So the people in the stands can clap. You're going to get real with it? Write a constitution. You get real with it, have a decentralized government. You want to get real with it, have a decentralized ledger, as we do. Cardano didn't stop. It encountered the worst thing that could ever happen to a blockchain. A hard fork resulting in a long chain reorganization. Normally with proof of stake, it's game over, man. You have to just simply stop the network, manually reconstruct it, checkpoint it, hard fork every single client meticulously, some centralized actor. Instead, both chains operated at the same time. And they came back together. And it never stopped. And it was done in a totally decentralized way. That's the first time in history any proof of stake protocol has ever done that. Only proof of work can do that. Only proof of work. Ethereum cannot do this. Solana cannot do this. Avalanche cannot do this. Only Cardano could. That's a fact. It's a protocol fact. And it did it in a totally decentralized way. When the whole community came together. That's a triumph. That's a testimony to great engineering. That's a hallmark of a protocol that's aspiring to be one day worthy of running the world. And part of that is growing up enough to realize these childish fantasies and these sociopathic desires and selfish desires of saying that everybody's in it for their own and prey upon the weak and vulnerable. That we should have a system instead that respects everybody and integrates into society. And then we're mocked for that. Shame on you. When did we start listening to these people? Honestly speaking, when did we start listening to these people? When did they get so much power and sway and they have so much influence over the young? Why do they get to decide this world? Is this it? Have we become so cynical that we just say everybody's in it for themselves? We have to grow up as an industry. We really do. We have to become better as an industry. We have to not do these things anymore. The reason why the price is low is because institutions got what they wanted. They pumped and dumped the DATs, guys. They sucked out people like Citadel and others tens of billions of dollars. They pumped it up, shorted it down, and made both sides of the trade. The market makers got squeezed, and the greedy people took greedy money from the president on down. That's why the markets are in the toilet. And it's been one fucked up thing after another fucked up thing after another fucked up thing. And everybody was over leveraged and the bubble popped. That's why the markets are down. It's the typical standard. You all got fucked as retail people by the institutions yet again. So where are the retail people? Why are they not in the markets? Because we didn't learn the lessons of 2021. We lived in a world of irrational exuberance where NFTs had pictures of bananas selling for $1.5 million. And a copy of a copy of a copy was worth $5 billion. And we all just pretended like we're the smartest motherfuckers in the world. We all deserve these gigantic valuations. And then FTX collapsed and Luna collapsed, and the everyday person got wiped out in the industry. They got destroyed. And then you say to them, please come back so we can get our gains again. And just to show how serious this industry was, after all that happened, where was the greatest area of growth? Meme coins. An instrument by its very construction is bereft of any intention to actually provide real utility. And those went up and up until the president of the United States did one. And everybody realized how thoroughly uncool and unsustainable this was. And then they collapsed. And then everybody's like, well, where's retail? Why is retail not here? Where's retail? Why is retail not saving us? Because they're smarter this time around. And what are we offering them if we're to listen to these carnival barkers on crypto Twitter? That when your funds get stolen, you have no rights. When you lose things, fuck you, it's your fault. Everything's a scam. Just be the first person to scam and you'll make some money. Expect high yields until you don't, in which case you're the sucker. But don't worry, another coin's being launched and it has a 85% insider distribution with a bunch of VCs behind it. But it's got shiny marketing, so you just have to buy it. That's what we're offering them. And don't worry, institutions have come in and they'll save us, except for the times they won't, because they're manipulating the markets and they can short sell and do all kinds of fucked up things better than you've ever believed, because they've been doing it for over 100 years. And they're smarter than us and richer than us. And then you ask, gosh, why aren't these people flooding into the industry? Why are we just not having more people buy our dumped shit? Do I have to spell it out for you? Is it not honest? Obviously honest for you? Ugh. It's one thing to have fun and have a small cap meme coin, and everybody involved in it kind of knows where it's going and what it's about, and they're just doing it as a thing. It's another thing entirely to try to build an entire fucking industry's growth on top of it. The growth has to come from real people doing real things on the ledgers. The growth has to come when governments and companies stop doing legacy things and they move over to the blockchain space, which means we have to have serious adult conversations about identity and privacy and the integration of legacy laws into the system as a whole. That is where the real growth comes, and billions of transactions, if not trillions, live there. And unless and until we get that, we don't deserve market caps as an industry. We don't. And the only way we get there is we have an adult conversation about how the stack works. Where is the protocol in charge, and when does it go to the jurisdiction? And what you're saying is you can never have that conversation and let exploiters always win to the detriment of everybody who uses the system. I refuse that argument. This industry is a scam, if that's the argument. It is not sustainable. It cannot work. And no sane human being should go into this industry. I can't tell my parents to adopt that. I can't tell my friends to adopt that. That's like telling people to go to an island of cannibals and hope to God they don't get eaten alive. Why would anybody tell anyone, unless they're planning to rob or kill them, to enter this insane world? You have to have a system where you've done everything in your power to try to make it simple and easy and safe for people so they can trust it and use it. Not a system where at any given moment, if somebody gets clever and lucky, especially with AI, because everybody's clever now with AI, that they can take everything from you. What would you honestly want to live in that world? You're rich when you go to bed, you're poor when you wake up, and the fruits of your labors are gone forever. You go to work, you're honest, you do your thing for 20 years. You're a carpenter, you've lost fingers from that job. You've saved and saved and saved, and some 21-year-old piece of shit living in God knows where found a protocol flaw and was able to steal 100% of your money. And they go, ha ha ha, lols, it's funny, you got griefed. That's the world? That's your world you want to live in? And we should tell retail to come, buy that, participate in that, pump our fucking bags? That's what you want? That's what you're creating with this mindset. And it's not real. So get fucking serious. Honestly, get fucking serious. Yes, the code will run as intended, and that's the point. And no, governments don't get a say on how that code runs. But absolutely, the users of the system live in jurisdictions, and in those jurisdictions, they are entitled to life, liberty, and property. That is a fundamental right we fought and bled for hundreds of years, and it will not be surrendered. Not today, not tomorrow, not next year. It is the most foundational right of a free society. And those rights must be protected, absolutely protected. People have died in wars to ensure that those rights don't get violated. They will be protected. And if someone steals your life, liberty, or property, you have recourse. It is not the business of the blockchain to get it. It's the business of the society that you live in. That's the separation of concerns. And if you can't get that, go fuck yourself. You're choosing not to get that because you benefit from that asymmetry. And you're just as bad as all those people roving around causing harm. And any society that doesn't embrace that is not worthy of being a great society. We have to get serious. The next 5 years are the most important years in the history of this industry. These are the years when all the people are going to come in. And they're either going to come into Google chain that's already made that decision, and Microsoft chain that's already made that decision, and Apple chain that's already made that decision, or they're going to come into the cryptocurrency space. If you decide to live in this fantasy land, then guess what? They've already won the Mag 7. And everything we've built over the last 15 years means nothing. Nothing at all. And no sane person would want to be part of this. If you decide, yeah, you know what? We need to figure this out, and let's do it in a way that preserves what makes cryptocurrency special. The transparency, the immutability, the decentralization, the lack of middlemen inside the system, the censorship resistance, all of that can be preserved. But you have to also accept that people are people and they live in societies, and we have to put these two pieces together and figure out the middle ground for it. And it's hard, and you have to write constitutions, and you have to do all kinds of things. And you know what? We did a lot of that hard work in Cardano, and it shows with the strength of the community, the decentralization of the community, and our ability to recover from the worst hack in the history of proof of stake and still be here today and not have to shut off the system. Okay? So I've made my decision. I've made my choice. If you want to mock me for it, and if that is just what crypto Twitter is, I'll just spend less time on it. But I'm not going to change my opinions. I'm not going to change my mission, and I'm not going to change my advocacy. Not one bit. I'll just know who the bad people are, and I'll just know who I can't trust. If you advocate preying upon the weak, I can't trust you. I can't work with you. You're a sociopath. You're a psychopath. You're a horrible human being. You don't deserve success or business. You deserve a cage. Because no civilized free society tolerates those who prey upon the weak. We're past that as humans. We should be. Anyway, figured I'd make a video, talk about it. This one, it's not the difficult things I expected people to chew us out for getting hacked and for having a problem. Sure, you know, we wrote the bug. We earned that. We own that. That's fair game. I didn't expect people to get so bent out over the life, liberty, and property thing. It's pretty insane to me. It honestly is. And it makes me just look at this industry in a slightly different light from time to time. It's been a long time, guys, and I'm tired. I'm just tired. And it's circular, and it's like dealing with an alcoholic that just keeps relapsing. It's like dealing with a drug addict, and they go to rehab and they get a little bit better, and they promise you they're going to be better, and then you find them on the side of the street with heroin sticking out of their arm. And at some point, you just got to say, I can't do this anymore. I want to move on. I want to move to a different system. I want to move to a different state in the evolution of this system. We're frozen right now as an industry. We shouldn't be here. We should be growing. We should be evolving. We should be cooperating. And we need to let this nonsense and mess behind us. It's childish. We have a small window of time to change the world and do something special. And I've, for 15 years, been here and been pushing hard I've been through every generation of the blockchain space, the first, the second, the third, the fourth. I've built 4 blockchains now. BitShares was the first algorithmic stablecoin and the first DEX in 2013. Ethereum, everybody seemed to like that one. Cardano, and now Midnight. And every step of the way, they're radically different. They brought new ideas that have never been seen before and new ways of doing things that have never been seen before. And having been in the room for all of these things, I can give you some of that insight and wisdom that I've gained. And what I'm trying to tell you is, despite the fact that the technology is evolving, the culture is not. We have to grow up. We have to learn. We have to grow. We have to change. And we have to accept that we live in a society. And we have to ask ourselves, how do we bring what's best from us? And how do they bring what's best from them? And how do we work together as one society? That's the whole point of the 4th generation. And if we're unwilling to do that, we're like that perpetual bachelor that never gets married, never has kids. You stay frozen in your 20s. You're still in your 20s when you're in your 30s. You're still in your 20s when you're in your 40s. You're still in your 20s when you're in your 50s. All your friends change. They have kids. They get married. Their lives are radically different. They don't hang out the way they used to. You ask them to, they say, can't. Got to do something else. You know what happens? You end up alone. You're stuck. That's where we're at as an industry. And we wonder why the price isn't going up. It would go up if we didn't do these fucking things. So it's a choice we have to make. We have to change. We have to grow up as an industry. We have to change the mindset, the culture, and the mentality, or else we'll just repeat the same mistakes until the value dwindles away and everything collapses away. There's nothing worth saving in a system that's survival of the fittest and the strong prey upon the weak. No just society will invest in that or push for that.